Bob, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure that you're coming on and that we're getting to hang out together down in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Soul Summit coming up in actually just a couple of weeks, first part of September, I believe.
I believe right.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Now you're out of Scottsdale, are you?
Yes, I live in North Scottsdale. Yes,
North Scottsdale. Oh, the cold, snowy side of Scottsdale.
correct.
Way
And
up north,
today,
yeah.
today we're going to set a heat record outside. I think it's going to be 115. So I got to go get a jacket before I, leave. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's only bad for a few days of the year, but in the wintertime when you're digging out snow, it'll be 70 out there. It'll be beautiful. I'll be sure and call you.
Yes, well, I live in the lower left side of Canada, so we don't dig out once.
Oh, you don't dig out over there? Okay.
We just shovel rain here. That's why we live in a rainforest. It's beautifully green, and there's a reason for that. Hey,
Yeah.
now you've been doing this whole, I was going to call it woo-woo because that's how my friends and I refer to each other as woo-woo people. You've been involved in this for a living for a few years now, but
Yes.
when did this start? When did you wake up one day and say, oh, crap, I can see things?
Well, the way it started, believe it or not, so I am 58. It started when I was about 50. There was a psychic here in town that I would go see a couple times a year, for birthday and holiday and like the end of the year just for fun. And when I was turning 50, she said to me, "Hey, Bob, you have this gift. You should be giving messages." And I thought that was insane because at the time I was a fairly successful realtor, selling real estate, residential real estate. And I thought that was crazy. And it was interesting that later that same week, I went to an event at someone's house. She's a medium, and she was talking to people on the other side. And all the people there were talking about learning how to read tarot cards. And I thought to myself, well, this is weird because Brenda told me I was supposed to do this. And now I'm at an event 3 days later and everyone's talking about it. So I thought, all right, there must be something to this. So I went home and I Googled learn how to read tarot cards, and I found a class or something by Doreen Virtue. She makes she makes angel cards, and she has a program to become a certified angel card reader. And I thought, well, for $30 or whatever it was at the time, I think it was 30. I'll give this a whirl. So in that class, they had an online class. They talked about, how to listen to your intuition and look at cards and get messages, and kind of, gave the idea that, if I flip this at the right time or if it feels like it, it's important, I'll know it. And I thought, okay, so I'll do it. And so at the end of the class, in order to get the certified part, you had to do readings for people. And I thought, okay, well, that's insane. Who's going to believe me? I'm a realtor. So I put it on Craigslist and I did 10. The note said, ask me any question. It's a free reading. All you need to do is tell me if you get it right, if I get it right. And I did 10 of them. 9 of them wrote me back saying, oh my gosh, that was amazing. How'd you know that? And I still didn't believe it till I guess she must have been the 9th one, wrote me back. So it was a woman who asked me, what should I do for my career? And I remember telling her, I feel like you're doing a lot of writing. You should be a doctor or nurse. Why aren't you in medical school? And she wrote me back and said, I am actually an emergency room scribe studying to be a nurse. And I thought, wow, I must really be able to do this. So then it's kind of, how everything works out in a weird way. So then I went to the local bookstore here in Phoenix to buy a deck of cards, my tarot deck. And the woman behind the counter was like, oh, you know what? I'm learning how to read the cards too. Why don't you hang out with me and my roommate and we'll all learn together? Well, that's kind of how that started. So one thing led to another, and within 2 months, I was doing my first psychic fair, and then I got chosen to read at the Renaissance Festival. And so it just kind of opened up very slowly but surely. And now, for the last 3 years, I actually quit my real estate job, and now I do this full time because I found that giving the messages and helping people answer questions about their lives the unique way that I get the messages was way more fulfilling than anything else I ever did. And so that's basically my story. And every day it's just more exciting than the past because I don't ever remember what I tell people in a reading because there's so many people you meet. So it's funny when they come back and they'll say, oh, you read for me last year. Don't you remember you told me blah, blah, blah? And I'll be like, no. But they'll say, yeah, you said the exact same thing. So I'm consistent in that way, too. So it's just amazing, the whole thing. But that's my story. That's how I got started. And now I feel like I have a pretty successful business doing this. I do it full time, Tuesdays through Saturdays. I do 4 to 5 readings a day. I also go to all the psychic fairs and like the Soul Summit where we're going to be together. And I'm just as much out there helping people as best I can. Whatever question they have, I'm happy to answer it.
Now, you're going to be at the UFO Congress too?
Yes, I'm going to the UFO Congress. In fact, the UFO Congress is going to be my first convention type event like that. I've never done it before, but I have a couple friends who are going, and I'm like, all right, I'll give it a whirl, and I guess we'll meet each other at that too. So that'll be the first time I've actually sit out all day long and do that. I've done fairs, but never a multi-day event like that. So I'm excited to see how that works.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of fun. I'm going to be doing that. I'll be with Dr. Lynn Kitai, who produced and directed the documentary The Phoenix Lights about the UFO parade that showed up in Phoenix over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. Now, you were talking about grabbing a deck of angel cards from the Doreen Virtue, who now disavows anything to do with those things. Yeah, yes. She's it's interesting. I still see them for sale. All the Doreen.
They're for sale everywhere. You can get them. I use them. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I haven't really followed. I know she disavowed all that, but I still get messages from them. So the way my gift works is I hold the decks in my left hand, and with my right hand, I kind of like feel the card that doesn't fit, and that's the one I draw. And so. Yeah, and it works on all the decks. It doesn't to me because I have her decks. I have a bunch of people's decks because as you do this full time or the more you do it, you tend to accumulate decks. I think I have about 20 of them. I don't use them all at once, but right now I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got like 6 of them sitting here on my desk as we're talking. Actually, there's more like 8 of them. And those are the ones I seem to use during my readings. It just kind of depends. And I do notice, too, like, for example, when people come to me and they have never had a reading before, I notice that my guides kind of get me to go towards the Oracle or Angel card deck first before the tarot deck. And I feel like the reason is that the Angel or Oracle card deck has, images on it with words so people can see the words. And so as I have my eyes closed and giving them messages, they can kind of follow along. As compared to the tarot deck that just has symbols on it, which I feel like they might not know exactly what it means, but they kind of get the gist of it after they've seen it once in the Oracle deck.
It's kind of funny you say you started at 50 about 8 years ago, because that's the first time I went to see a psychic. And
really?
After talking to her, she said, oh, yeah, and she did Oracle cards, and she said, oh, you could do this too. And she said, you're something called an empath. And
oh, yes.
And goes on and on and on. I'm looking at her going, yeah, right. But she also saw my mother was standing beside me, and she knew her name was Lexa, Lexa. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to pop out of
nowhere.
And she also went through a number of other things that nobody else knew, including the dead people I saw when I was a kid. And she said, yeah, they were ghosts. They were what you thought they were, but you just kind of ignored it and shook your head and walked away. And I started
because I feel right now that you like hear stuff more than see it. Does that make sense? Like hear things more than see it?
It's hearing is I don't know, something that's between you, like you would know what this means when you say hear it. It's like receive information.
Yes.
It's in your head.
Yes, that's how my gift works.
And
yes,
I do a thing called, I've moved on from, well, I can still do the Oracle cards. Actually, I took a course in it, and I was, a friend of mine who was a policeman too, I got her to pull out a bunch of business cards, and we just flipped them, put 7 of them down, and I had her flip them over, and I flipped them over looking at the white side of them, and I gave her a complete reading. And then I realized I'm just focusing. That's all it really is. So now I call it stand-up readings. Once I can look at somebody and all of a sudden a family member comes in to their left and starts, passing information on. And I see it like you would remember a kid you went to high school with in your head. Mm-hmm. They're there, but, in various types of clothing and things. And I get hand signals, but then I get information just flies through my head. So, I guess it is hearing it, but not audible. Kind of thing.
Right.
It's just information coming in. And it's, hold on a second, I'm coughing. I'm going to cough again. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is very interesting, I guess, the best way of putting it, because it's been going on since 2012, November 2012 for me. And things have ascended every couple of years I get more, something new has been given to me.
Yes, that's how my gift has worked too. Because when I first started, I'll admit it, I don't think I was very good, but I still got messages from the tarot cards. But now I don't even really need the cards. I mean, I use them more for the other person than for me. I just have this stone thing that I hold and I just tell people stuff. So it is interesting that way. I mean, the cards help me kind of know what to focus on in the beginning, but after I've done a little bit with the person and I'm like used to their energy, then it just kind of flows out. But you're right about like when you said you saw a mom on your whatever side that is, the left side, is that right? Yeah, because it's your left. That is the side where I notice if I see a being or sense something there when I'm doing mediumship, that it's somebody on mom's side. And if they're on the other side of your head, that's someone on your dad's side.
Yeah.
So that does make perfect sense to me when she popped out. And I've gotten names too like that. And the first time it happened, it just freaks me out every time. And it still does, that I still can do it. And I feel like that just keeps me grounded and grateful, because I know I don't know a lot of psychics, but not personally, but I've seen some who they know they're good and it's almost like an ego thing with them. And I've always sworn to myself I was never going to be that person. So I think that's what keeps me grounded, that when I read the cards, I never have them face up. So when I pull it, it's a surprise to me too. And at the end, when people will say, oh, wow, that was amazing, I'd still get excited that way. And I think it's that excitement and gratitude that keeps people coming to me, because definitely it's out there in the universe. I mean, I get, like I said, 4 to 5 people a day. Most of them I don't know. People do come back, but not as much as the newbies that come to me.
My friend Marianne Morgan, who is Nancy Reagan's psychic, she'll do one reading, and it's good for 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But mind you, she's kind of freaky. She'll also tell you the cause and the date of your death.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
I've had people, it's interesting about that. I've had people ask me, and usually sometimes I've heard like dates. I haven't heard causes unless they ask me, like specifically ask me, then I'll hear it. But I never give that information, because I usually say when they ask, I'm like, I don't want to say. I said, because then I usually say I don't know. But the reason I don't do it is because I feel like if I tell someone, oh, you're going to, die at 40, well, then you're going to manifest that and get hit by a bus, whether it was right or not. And what if I am wrong and you're at 39, you've, given everything away, and you don't pass away, then you're kind of in a worse spot. So on that's just, I don't know that that's my ego doing it, but I usually decline answering that one. It's kind of like,
it's not your ego. I think it's you've been guided not to answer that. My friends who've been doing this for a while, and they used to do it over Skype, like we're talking right now, video-wise, they will not want to look at the person, because they'll find the person may end up, they'll say something, and they'll look at the person they're doing a reading for, and the person may kind of do a head turn or something, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, did I say something wrong? And they start overthinking, where if it's not, they'll just keep going, and they will not answer questions of, well, is this, I'm seeing somebody, is he the one? Well, right. if you say yes, then maybe that person is not going to try as hard to keep that relationship going, and that person is going to break away or go somewhere else. It's that you're opening up. Whereas, am I going to get the job that I applied for? And you kind of think, okay, yeah, I see you getting that job. Okay, then I'm not going to try as hard to get it, because, I'm not going to really worry about going to the interviews on time or doing a good job, because it's a game. I
have answered those for. It's interesting that you brought that up too. So one of the things I do, I read with my eyes closed. Nice. And I think, and then I use it, and I would tell people the reason I do is that way it helps me concentrate on the message. But I also know it's so that I can't read stuff off people, because one of my favorite things is, when you're done, like with a little bit of a card spread, and then you open your eyes or you look up at the person, the look on their face of, oh my gosh, how'd you know that? To me, that's the best part, because that's how I know I'm making a difference. So my running joke, or one of the ones I have, is I make somebody cry every day. And I feel like the crying is about an acknowledgement that they needed, admitting something that, they needed to know or first notice. So I usually tell people in the beginning, that I do make people cry. So if you feel like you need to, it's okay to let it out. Because at the beginning, the first few times it happened, I was like freaking out about it. And then I realized, no, it's actually something positive. So if they came to my home, I know people at home can't see this, but on my desk, I have a big box of Kleenex just in case, because I know I make people cry all the time.
I've found that, it can make people cry, and I also will sometimes cry myself. Or I'll be getting information about something, and all of a sudden my chest will kind of swell up a bit. Like I'd get, my heart would start beating, and I'm trying to understand why I'm getting these physical, I don't want to say ailments, but I'm getting a physical clue from
get that
person.
Yeah, I think that's our empathic thing, because even I get that all the time. Like, for example, today I was doing Facebook Live and I got to someone, and all of a sudden I really felt like I needed to throw up. Like I was really feeling sick to my stomach. And I said to them on Facebook Live, I'm like, are you feeling sick to your stomach or really nervous? Because I'm really feeling it. And then I gave them a message. And then as soon as I moved on to the next person, all the symptoms went away. So I think that is our empathic thing. And it is, when it comes on, it's pretty strong like that. And I'm not sure. Some people have told me how to block it, put a notepad over your stomach or something like that to kind of block the energy, but that usually doesn't seem to work. I've tried that before, so I get that whole empath thing, especially if someone is in angst. I can feel it. I've never cried before, but usually my symptoms are just very much sick to my stomach or getting a strong headache. That's interesting.
It's a learning experience for me every time I do it. We're talking to Bob the Psychic. He is out of Scottsdale, Arizona. You can go to his website, scottsdalepsychic.com.
And bobthepsychic.com. Yeah, it's easy to remember that.
Yeah, bobthepsychic.com. You can book an appointment through him or on the website and poke around and see all the different events he's coming up to. And he is going to be at the Soul Summit with me coming up in the September in Scottsdale, Arizona. I think it's at the Doubletree Inn.
I believe that's right, yes.
On North Scottsdale. And then we're going to be at the International UFO Congress in Phoenix the following week. And in between, yes, I'm going up to Sedona to see UFOs, and then down to Tombstone, Arizona, where
Have you done the UFO thing before? Have you seen them before?
I went out there.
I did too.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. And I always thought, well, there has to be, but after seeing them up there, I totally believe it. I mean, we went, and the one I did it was great. The most interesting thing that happened after that is, so when you get, I guess, around that energy, it affects electronics a lot. So I had a Prius at the time, and the next day after I went up there, my Prius battery, I blew out the battery, the big battery that runs the car. They had to replace it. And the car had, I guess, 10 years, about 100,000 miles on it. The batteries are warrantied up to that, but they're supposed to last longer. But I just thought that was fascinating that I went the night before, watch UFOs and do that. But we saw them in the sky, and they give you, laser beams, like the laser lights to point at them.
Laser pointers,
Yeah, it was great. I'd highly recommend that to anyone. If you're not a believer, just go with an open mind, because when you see it, you'll be like, okay, that can't be a satellite, and it's surely not an airplane. And the way they scoot around in the sky, and the woman we were with, she started flashing her light at one of them, and it flashed back.
Yeah, Melinda Leslie.
I don't remember her name, but she must be the one. She's done it for many, many years, and I'm thinking that's got to be who I went with.
Melinda Leslie does it out of Sedona, and she hands out the little laser pointers. You shoot at, if you see one, you point it out to the rest of the crew with the vision.
Right, yes.
You look at it, and you hit it 3 times, pause, 3 times, pause, and then she calls it powering up, and it gets about 10 times brighter. It's like they're flashing their high beams back at us.
Yes.
And satellites don't travel in groups of 3 and 4 and 5, and you can't launch satellites to do that.
Yeah.
And and of course the military aircraft had those strobe lights, so we saw some of those. And this commercial aircraft have the red and white light and travel a lot slower than these do. And there's only, I think, 10 real satellites in that airspace for every 2 hours up there. So it was fascinating. I really came away enlightened. But then again, someone else said, "Well, do you think they could be government experimental, or are they really ETs?" So. Okay, great. Now we've got another whole thing to go think about. Yeah, so I'm going to do that, and then down to Tombstone, Arizona, where a friend of mine has a store in the last remaining morgue down there, which is really, really active. So I like going down there. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to go hang out with you and watch you make people cry. So that'll be fun.
Yes, because I have to make at least 1 or 2 people cry a day while I'm there. So we'll see how that goes.
Hey, do you ever get something that people call a psychic hangover? Do you get like headaches after doing readings?
I don't get headaches, but I get exhausted, like physically and mentally exhausted. So like after I've done a fair, I do notice when my energy is really good and the fair is really good. If it starts at 9 and ends at 5, people will show up starting about 10, and I won't even get up out of my chair till 5 o'clock. When it's over, it's just constant. And then the next day, it needs to be very quiet because I'm just exhausted, and I just kind of lay on my couch, and my dog lays on top of me like she's trying to recharge me too. My little dachshund. Yeah. So I don't get headaches per se, but I do get that sense of exhaustion and a feeling of almost like burnout. So those 2 days a week that I take off, where I don't answer my phone and I don't do anything, that's important that I do that. In the very beginning, I did work 7 days a week. I was open all the time, and I was on a psychic line, and I did all this stuff. And after you get it out there, and you kind of like your gift grows the more you do it. As that started happening, then I realized, no, I really need to take that time off to recharge. And that's what I feel like is the most important thing for me. So yes, I do get something, but not exactly headaches.
What would you recommend? Like you said, you worked on a psychic line. What's it like working on a psychic line? What kind of clients?
Yeah, it was... well, here's what I've noticed. So when I first started, I charged a lot less than what I charge now, because that was kind of like what I've heard that people like. So I'll just say it. I used to charge $1 a minute plus $10. So a 30-minute reading was $40, and an hour was
70.
I think it was 70. So what I noticed when I first started, the people at different price ranges, you get like different kinds of people. Not that there's any bad. There's no judgment here. It's just interesting. So the people that I get now, because I charge more, seem to be more, they're like more grounded, and I feel like they believe more because they're willing to pay for it in a way. I don't even know if that makes sense, but for example,
I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because I charge right now $150 an hour, which is up, $30 from when I started or whatever it was. And now the people I get, I really like their energy. They keep coming back, and I'm very comfortable there. It is interesting how many people say to me, "Oh my gosh, you should charge more. You could totally do that." Even there was a woman I spoke with this morning, and I just sent her, I texted her the receipt from her credit card charge, and she texted me back, "You should be charging twice as much. People would pay that, twice as much." So I think it's interesting that I get those kind of messages, and she's very intuitive and psychic. She was saying stuff to me that, oh yeah, she totally has the gift. And I told her she didn't really believe that she did, but then I kind of pointed out, no, you do, because you wouldn't have known that about me if you didn't, have the gift. So I don't even know where we were going with this, but that's
the psychic line on how.
Oh, psychic line. Okay, so here's what that was like. So for the psychic line, it was called. Oh, I don't even remember. But it was very inexpensive for the people to call, and they paid us about. I want to say I made $20 an hour. So for a 15-minute reading, I got $5, and the company got. I don't even know if they were charging $2 a minute. I think it was less than that. But the people who call, the questions weren't as like, I want to say as deep as like stuff about themselves. Like I would get questions about, is my boyfriend cheating? Let's see, am I going to get a job? Those kind of questions, not like really deep, more spiritual questions that I get now that my price range is higher. But it was fun, though, doing it. The phone kept ringing, and I did get people telling me after I'd been on it for a couple of months that I was the best one they talked to. Cool. Take that with a grain of salt. Who knows? Because there were a bunch of people on it, so how do you know that? And the other one, the one that I was on, that I know all the people were really good. They weren't gypsies or people who were just trying to make stuff up. It was called Best American Psychics. I was on that for a year. That one was very good. And the only reason I got off those is because I realized I could do it myself and not have to pay someone else to do it, and I could market for myself and do all that. And that's the only reason I stopped on that one. If I was going to go back to being on a psychic line, I would probably go back to that one, because I really like the fact that they test you to make sure it's real, and that all the other people around them or all the people other around, you can Google and see what they are, and they're all very much gifted. It was much different than the first psychic line that I was on.
Yeah, those ones where you're actually tested by somebody, they seem to be the more. I give them a lot more credit, and
yes,
I give them a lot more time. If somebody sits
and by
down
testing, just for people who don't know how they test a psychic, what they do is they'll have you call and they'll have somebody call you that you don't know, and then give them a reading and tell them stuff and see what happens. And you just treat them as though they're a client. And I did it. I think I only had to do it once. But I think I did surprise them, and that's why they said, okay, yeah, you can be on the line. I would assume they do turn people down or turn people away somehow. Or if there are people who aren't sure of their gift, then why would you want to be tested? To me, the testing was kind of like, oh, this is intriguing. Maybe I'll try it and see if it works. That was kind of my thought going into it, because I thought, well, this is cool. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. There's a store in my community here in my town or city. It's called White Lotus Divine Healing, and I go there for energy healing and Reiki and things like that, because I've got a wonky back. And I actually had a psychic and one of the girls there come and clear a whole whack of stuff out of my house. Long story, but we had to open a portal and send all sorts of stuff out of here and crossover.
Oh, wow.
Crossover things that weren't human, or move things out of here that weren't human. We had a portal come actually in the house, which was opened by a house guest we had, she moved her out of apartment because it was so haunted, and she realized it wasn't just the apartment, it was her. She was a lightning rod for all this stuff, and she opened a portal here, and we had slaves from the eastern seaboard of the United States popping up here in Western Canada out of a portal.
Really?
One guy was on fire. I had psychics trying to get in there remotely, and Skeeter Wellhouse, a psychic I use for clearing ghosts out of other people's houses, she couldn't get into the room. She says, "There's too much smoke, I keep coughing." And the psychic that came to the house, she goes, "Oh," without knowing all this, she said, "There's somebody burning in there. There's an actual person on fire." And his daughter and wife, who also died in the fire, came and crossed him over. And with those kind of things, we had I think it was 13 in a room down there. We had 4 elemental beings helping get these things out, and a girl we call Annie, who's a ghost in the house, who just kind of pointed things out to us. And then we had to seal it up. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, this is the woo-woo store that I go to, and they basically, you can go there and have readings and book appointments. And I walked in, and I ended up looking at the girl behind the counter, and I looked at her and I said, "There's a lady just standing beside you," and passed a whole whack of information on. And she looked at me and said, "Hey, would you like to do readings here?" I said, "Really?" "No, I don't do readings for money. I am off. I did it one time. I used to, when I first started with the cards, I guess I was really good at it. One of the top card readers in the area told a local shop that she worked at that I was good at it, and I got a phone call to come in and replace her one day. And it was surprising because it was, I think it was $120 per reading, and the store got 20 and I got 100, and I thought, that's a lot of money for 35 minutes of just passing information on. And I felt really bad about taking it. So now I don't do that. I can walk down the street, and then it's like somebody jumping up and down saying, come over here, I need to talk to my human here and pass on some information." And
Yeah, that's happened to me too. That's happened to me a few times. Most recently, this is my most interesting story about that. So I did a high school graduation party 2 years ago, and then I did this. Then the next was this year. So this year, there were people there, and this girl walks by. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a message for her. And I called her over, and she was going to ASU, Arizona State University here. And I told her whatever it is I said. And she said to me, when I was done, she goes, 2 years ago at the other party, you told me the exact same thing verbatim. And I'm like, really? She goes, yeah. And she didn't come up to me for a reading or anything, but it was funny that I got, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to tell her something. And I told her the exact same thing. I don't remember what it is I told her because, now I don't remember. But I thought that was interesting. But you're right about how you meet people and you're just supposed to tell them stuff. It happens to me a lot too. In the beginning, I used to tell people stuff when I would hear it. And then I work part-time at a department store over here doing customer service. And there was a woman who came up and I heard in my head, tell her whatever it is, I don't remember. And I said, by the way, I'm a psychic and this is a message for you. And she looked at me like I was just insane. And so I decided after that, don't do that. Yeah. So now I kind of wait. If people come up and ask if they have a message, I give it. But normally I don't just walk up to people and go, hey, by the way. I don't normally do that.
Yeah,
because usually, and my gift kind of turns off too. So in my reading room, which you can see here, the blue room as I call it, that's the only place I do readings in my apartment. I don't do any other work or anything else here. And then in the other rooms is where I, do everything else. So that way this room is just for that energy. So I think that keeps it clear too. And one more funny thing I had to share with you. So when you were talking about the ghosts in the house and smelling the burning, I have gotten, since I've become a medium, if people come and they want to do mediumship, I know because they'll put it on the little checklist when they book with me. But I usually don't look at it till they're sitting in front of me. But what'll happen is their guide or whoever it is they want to talk to will show up before. And the way I'll know they're here is if they used to smoke, I smell it. Or if my dog starts looking around or looking at something and wagging her tail, she does that. So that's true. That's happened to me. But the funniest thing my dog does is when I have people coming over, she will, about 10 minutes before they're supposed to be here, she will stand up by the door like she's ready to go outside. And I'll open the door and she just walks out to the front of the building, sits there and looks. It's not like she's running to the grass or the stones to pee on or anything. No, she's waiting for the person to show up. It's fascinating that my dog does the same thing. And the craziest thing about that was when the person that I'm dating, when I first met her and she came over the first time, I knew what her car looked and all that. Carly, my dog, did not. And so I was standing out in front, Carly standing there next to me, and Maria, she pulls into the parking lot, and there are 3 cars. There's one in front of her car, and one behind. Carly looks up and starts running towards the middle car, towards her. Had never met her, had no idea who she was, but she knew that person was coming to see me. That happens all the time. So does that happen with your dog too? Does your dog know?
No. My dog kind of looks at me and just shakes his head and walks away. No,
my dog is very friendly that way. She'll look at walls and wag her tail and kind of look at me and stuff. And when I'm doing mediumship, sometimes because she usually sits she's right over here on the ground sleeping. If I just start doing mediumship, she'll get up and walk out of the room because sometimes she doesn't like it. And then when I'm done, she comes back in. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I've got to ask you something. The room that you're in, that you do readings in, you call the blue room. Is that only because it's got blue paint?
Yes, that's the main reason. And the blue was chosen by another psychic friend who's kind of like a mentor to me. Okay. And so we picked the color blue, which we got, and then we charged it, put our energy into it, and then we painted the walls. And so I had to get permission from the apartment complex to do it. But that way, this room is totally different. And so the energy in here is very blue and calming. A lot of people say they feel like they're at a psychic store when they're in here because I have candles and stones and stuff like that. But they feel very calm in here. And I try to make sure that I sage it every night and all that so it's clear. Mm-hmm. And so this is my peaceful room that I come in here. And it's interesting, too, when my dog comes in here, she always goes to sleep. So she very much likes sitting here because right now she's over there snoring.
The reason I asked, because over time in the last, since 2012, and we've been, myself and a psychic named Skeeter Wellhouse, have been interviewing dead people, which is kind of...
Oh, wow.
So if you have let's say you've been seeing a lady upstairs in a blue dress, and what I do is, and I was a policeman for 28 years, so in Canada here, so I would phone you, or you'd phone me, and we'd talk about it, and I'd interview you and kind of get determination if, okay, this sounds legit. Then we'd bring the psychic in on a third line, and she would take a deep breath and show up in your house. And
Wow.
then would just start identifying all the spirits in the house. Usually 3 or 4 from the neighborhood would show up, and she'd just get them to stay outside because they just wanted to cross over. They know she was coming, so they're going to wait. So, but I would interview them, and we got talking to dead people, not only those who hadn't crossed over, but the ones that have crossed. And the term blue room is a fascinating term because it's a part of it's what some individual deceased people call the place they go after you go to the light kind of thing, and you go to the blue room. The first part of the blue room is where you download your thread. So it's the negative one. So if I bullied you in grade school, I have to feel how you felt. And then if my bullying of you made you bully someone else, I have to feel how they felt, because we all had that thread. So I have to download all that negativity, accept it as mine, and then I get to go to the good side of the blue room where I get to download all the positive stuff. So if I open a door for you, which let you open a door for someone else and made you laugh or told you a joke and that joke went out, then I get to feel all that. So after we do our blue room, then we move on to the next part of the schooling you get when you're up there. But that, when you said the blue room, I was taken aback. I'm like, God, he's got a blue room? And we found that some of the times these blue rooms actually exist on Earth. One out here on the scene of it was a serial killer, killed somewhere between 50 and 70 people.
Ooh,
and the blue room actually is sitting on that ground, and the women are coming and going because it's very traumatic to go over a lot of the negative things they've done to other people. That a lot of them are sex trade workers, and their threads connect to all sorts of negativity, so they can take a break and come back out. But they're protected by very angelic beings and elemental beings. So when the psychic went to that property, they stopped her at the property line and said, "Who are you?" And not the deceased, it was these angelic and elemental beings said, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" It's like, oh,
wow.
crap.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that about the room. So right now, so there's, one wall is the door, and then there's a wall with a window, and then 2 other walls. I've actually sat in 3 different positions in this room. So when I first started, I sat by the window, then I sat by the wall over there. Now I'm sitting on this side. And what's interesting, the place I'm sitting now, when I first got this apartment, the 2 psychic people would come here and say that there's a portal, and then right now it's right behind me. And it's funny that now I'm sitting in front of it, like the energy from it has helped guide me, because my gift has never been stronger or better since my desk where I sit moved to this kind of corner that I'm in now. So when you said about how people move around the room and get different stuff, yeah, that's what happened to me just in terms of my gift and readings in this room that I've done for people. That's really interesting.
Now, when you say the corner or the portal is behind you, it's obviously a positive energy push from the corner through you and then into the client, who would either be sitting in front of you or
on the phone or
Zoom or connected. So there's it's a straight line.
Correct.
Yeah. You're just dots in that line that are coming through. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Which direction is the corner facing?
That would be northeast.
Northeast. So if you're in Scottsdale, and you're North Scottsdale facing northeast, yeah, you're going out to some pretty cool. What's that giant crater out there?
Oh, meteor crater.
Yeah, that's northeast.
That's northeast of here. Yeah, that's out by Flagstaff, north of here. That would be north and slightly east of here. Yes.
Yeah,
that would be.
That's I was standing.
And Sedona would be just straight north.
Yeah, Winslow, Arizona.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And that's a huge. I'm losing my breath here. I got to rush. That's a huge energetic area going back, well, probably from the first time that meteor hit, but for the American Indian, the First Nations there, it's a very sacred, high vibration location. Yes. So it's kind of interesting that it's that's kind of an online with you. that corner of the room where you are, where I am, and it just kind of continues up to the northeast, up into that area.
Because when I started, my back was facing west, so I was when I started it was there, so I was facing south, then I faced east, and now my back faces northeast, so I'm facing southwest. But that is interesting that's the wall, though. You were talking about the wall.
Psychic Bob, how long have you been down in Phoenix and Scottsdale?
I've lived here since 1996.
So 96. So
yeah.
I'm trying to think, when was that? Were you there for the Phoenix Lights?
Yes, and here's a funny story about that. So in a previous life, I actually worked in television. I was a television newscast producer, and I produced the 10 o'clock news. So on the night when the lights hit, that was our lead story, and we had people calling in and chasing after that. And so I very much remember that, and remember seeing people talking about it and reporters and all that going out there and seeing it. I don't remember if I don't think I went outside and looked at it or saw it, but I know I was producing the news that night. So I totally remember all that stuff. And I do believe that some of the archival whatever footage that's in that documentary might have been from the newscast I did, because I feel like that I was in that somehow. I was involved in it, but I would have just written the words. I wasn't the one on TV.
Yeah, that was
that is
March 13th, 1997.
Yes, I was in TV then. I was working at the ABC affiliate here in town, Channel 15.
Yeah, it's basically, we're just kind of going through this now. Unidentified flying objects observed in the skies over U.S. states of Arizona, Nevada, and the Mexican state of Sonora that day.
Right. And the excuse, I want to say that the arm or whatever the Air Force gave, that it was flares from Luke Air Force Base.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It just doesn't make sense, because the thing was so big and it was blocking the sky. It couldn't have been flares. It had to have been something else. Not sure exactly what, but I feel like no, it was something else. Oh yeah, I got the chills on that. Yeah.
Yeah, there were two events. It was actually kind of funny. Dr. Lynn talks about one night where nothing was really reported, and it was a similar event that she was a witness to, and some other people were. And then the next day or 2 days later was the big event, and when she called up the Air Force Base, they said, "Oh, that was just flares," or "We don't have any record of it." And then she called back a week later. "Oh no, those are flares." And she said, "For which night?" "Both nights." And they kind of said, "What?"
Yeah.
You mean there was? Oh crap! Yeah, I guess there would be 2 nights we did. Yeah, right. Sure, you did. They tried to reenact it, and the flares did not. They just did like flares do. They just went on parachutes, and they weren't stuck in a V formation as they flew. They were all over the place.
Right.
So,
right.
And you get the debunkers saying, "Well, it's already been proved. It was all flares. We know that." No, it wasn't. You bozos. Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Well, I feel like you just have to be open to it. I mean, I don't know that we're ever really going to know what it was, but I feel like you just have to be open to it. And for people who are not believers, hey, if you want to have some fun, go to Sedona and go on the UFO tour thing. And you can walk away going, "Oh, no, it was airplanes." Believe whatever you want, but at least you'll see the things that both you and I have already seen, watching them fly around and flash. And just, yeah, those are not aircraft. There's just no way it could have been.
Yeah, and to actually interact with them. I was watching them, and Melinda Leslie, whose tour I was on, she pointed out if you went up on a 40-degree angle over a geological feature, she said, "I was told a bunch of people from NASA had come out and said, 'Look over there, there's a portal there.'" And she said, "A portal?"
Oh, she pointed that out to us. I remember she said, "Yes, if you watch them, they will all end up going to that point in the sky." And they did. They disappear like into that. There's one, because she pointed it out, and I remember going, "Okay, that's crazy." But then you watch, you go, "Oh wow, no, that did happen." Yeah, it was very interesting.
I was watching one by itself head there, and all of a sudden it powered up, so getting 10 times brighter. And another one, actually, one just appeared from this portal area. So the one going towards it got about 10 times brighter, and the one coming out got about 10. It's like they're flashing their high beams at each other.
Right.
One coming out, one going in. So yeah, I'm guessing those weren't satellites.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Because
I've seen satellites go by. I mean, they're constant. They're not flashing. They're moving in a. Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's just it's a different speed a lot of times too, and they don't travel in groups.
Correct. Yeah.
Because that would be awkward if honestly, unless the Russians or somebody are firing missiles, I think they're not going to travel in groups. We're talking to Bob the Psychic. Go to bobthepsychic.com and check out his website, or if you really want to get complicated, scottsdalepsychic.com. But bobthepsychic.com, and see his events that are coming out. Check out your Bob's events now that I have your website up. And clicking on Bob's events, and look at you. You're going, or you were at the Psychic Fair in July, and
right.
International UFO Congress, September 4th and 8th in Phoenix at the Sheraton Grand Phoenix. And I will be there too, but I'll be down around the corner with Dr. Lynn Kite from the Phoenix Lights. And then Bob and I will be sharing a booth at the Soul Summit in Scottsdale, September 12th. And that goes on.
Yeah, I just put that on there. So, yeah those are the right dates. I just put that there.
December 12th to the 15th-ish, somewhere like that. And then you're, what is this? The Phoenix First Friday Art Walk. Oh, that's kind of cool.
So every, the first Friday of every month, the city of Phoenix puts on something called the First Friday Art Walk. So it's in downtown Phoenix I'm near 4th Street and Roosevelt. So it's a very artsy district is what I want to say, and thousands of people show up for the first Friday to walk around. There's outdoor food booths and vendors and all sorts of stuff. So I have been in a parking lot there by one of the restaurants. The parking lot is full of other vendors selling jewelry, and there's what else do they sell? A guy selling robots, canned robots, to raise money for the homeless. But I've been doing that since the very beginning when I found out about her. And so that's just kind of fun, and I get a huge line there. I have a lot of regulars, and so every month I'm at that for sure. You can find me there. Although this month there's a conflict, because I think the UFO conference is on First Friday, so I won't be there for September, and that'll be the first month I've missed it in 2 or 3 years, because I go every month. Yeah,
they'll be looking for you there.
People will be, but that's okay. I made arrangements for another psychic to be there, and it's kind of funny. When I did that the last time I missed, people would come up and say, "Where is he? I don't want to talk to you." She told me 4 or 5 people came up to her, and I was like, "Oh wow, I'm sorry." She just started laughing. She's like, "Yeah, that's pretty funny if you have a crowd that loves you that much." I'm like, "Well, I guess I must be good at this. I don't know."
Hopefully they're going to check your website and find out where you're going to be at the Soul Summit, because the Soul Summit's going to be, I think, interesting. I've never been to one before, but it's kind of got our kind of people there. So
yes, and I recognize some of the names there, and I've met some of those people, so I know some of them, in passing. So I feel like it will be good energy there.
Yeah, really good. And then in October 6th, you're at the Phoenix Psychic Fair.
Correct. So there's 2 psychic fairs here in town. One of them is called the Phoenix Psychic Fair, and the other one is called Embrace Your Journey Psychic Fair. So the Phoenix Psychic Fair, and what they do is both of them, sometimes they're in the same month, but usually they're not. So there's 8 of them. Each one puts on 4. So every month or 2, you can come find me at a psychic fair. Right now, August, it's really hot, so they don't do psychic fairs in August, but they do pick up in September. There'll be one in November and December, especially towards the end of the year and beginning of next year.
Wow. Yeah,
I'm out there. I go to as much stuff as I can, because I like to hang around people and make them cry. That's kind of my
it's thing. It's like, we like making people cry.
Hold on. Well, because they're having that release, and and some people have even come to me at events saying, "I only came to see you. I'm not even going to walk around anyone else," because usually I'll go, "Oh, if you like this reading," and I'll point out a couple other people, because I feel like that's just part of it. Like, okay, I gave you some abundance. I know those 2 people over there are good. You want to talk to someone else? Try that. So we kind of all share. There's a group of 4 or 5 of us, and we kind of, refer people all around. Like the way you met me, the person who referred you to me, I've referred people to her. So it's been all around that way.
Oh yeah, it's all. It's kind of funny. It's like we're all telephone operators, and
yes,
we all have some people have better lines and better communication than others, but it's if you do recommend somebody to go to another person, it's because I think that is the reason they're supposed to go to the other person. You just kind of fall down. I've given up ever being competitive over this kind of thing. It's like, if I don't get something, it's like, no, you're not. Some people will come to me and say, "Could you give me a reading?" And I'll look at them and go, "No, I can't. I can't." And it's nothing personal, but it's not your time.
Right. And that's funny you bring that up. I have turned people away too, or they'll come to my apartment. That happened. It's happened twice here, where someone came to the apartment, and as soon as they walk in, I got, I'm not supposed to read. So I usually tell them, my guys are saying I'm not the right one. Let me give you the name of somebody else. The other thing that happens at fairs that cracks me up, and I bet this has happened to you too. So someone will go to another psychic first, and then they'll come sit at my table, and I'll tell them whatever, and they'll say, wow, that last psychic told me the exact same thing. And I usually laugh and say, well, we all have the earphones in our ears so we can hear everybody. But of course, that's not true. But it is interesting that when you tell people stuff and they say the last psychic told them the same thing. To me, that's interesting. And I usually say, well, that must really be a message for you that you're really supposed to hear if I said it to or if they said it to. So that's interesting.
Like you just think of it as you've just been hit over the head with a mallet. So take the message, quit shopping, and carry on.
Go for it.
Yeah, we used to have a live internet radio show, and every second Sunday it was an episode called Two Mediums and a Large. And I was
Oh, that's cute, yes.
And people would call in from all over the world, and some would call in, and very rarely you get somebody, and the psychics would be doing a reading, and you kind of go for that or confirmation kind of set. It's like, does this mean anything to you, or does this resonate with you? And you get somebody saying, no, that's not me. No, this doesn't happen. And the psychic would then start sending me text messages saying, this person's lying, and I don't want to read it anymore. It's like they just don't want to hear. They're literally wanting good information about a relationship, the color paint for the walls or something. And if they're not getting that, then they don't want to play.
What I've noticed about that, so all of my readings, I tell people, so I record them. So if they call me on the phone, I use a Google line and I record it, and then I send them a link to the file. But if they come see me in person, or if it's over Zoom, I let them record it on their phone or whatever. And I tell them the reason we're recording it is because not only does the information come out fast, but I say, if it doesn't make sense when I first say it, come back to it in 2 or 3 weeks and see if it makes sense then. Because what I found in the very beginning, when people would say, yeah, that doesn't make sense, they would call me and say, oh, when I went home and listened to it again, I realized I know what you were talking about. So like you were just saying, when the person says, no, I don't get it, well, chances are you're just not ready to hear it, or you're just not there yet, or whatever that is. But it probably does make sense, because I've never had one where they say, no, it doesn't make sense. And then when I say, well, go home and listen to it, and if it still doesn't, let me know. No, they turn around and say, no, it did make sense after they reconsidered it or got it into a different place type thing.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's what I found too. It's basically, if it's not resonating with them at the time, I say just file that away.
Right.
This is just the information I'm getting, and if I overthink it, it's kind of awkward too. If I'm getting information, and I'm getting information from the human guide that's standing beside them. I call them human guides because it's my impression that they're the in-between of the spirit guides, which I can't see. Like other people can. I think I communicate with spirit guides when I do my oracle cards. I get that information directly from them. I think when I'm doing this stand-up where the human comes through, they're the in-between. They're the gut feeling, the hair on the back of the neck. It's quicker for the spirit guides to give information to them to fire it into the human, the alive person, the living relative, than it is for the guide to reach down in vibration and have the living reach up in vibration to connect. Unless you're all Buddhist monks, you're gonna have that human guide beside you. And I say I'm getting visuals or information, and sometimes I'm saying things, and then if they ask me 2 minutes later what I said, I have no idea.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Because it just goes through me. I'm just the medium, I guess it is, the conduit. So I don't know. So I said, please record this, or make notes, or have another person standing there, transcribing this, because
when I do medium,
I don't know what's going. I don't what's said.
I have the same thing. So when I do mediumship or channeling, I tell people, okay, so I'm going to do it. I have no idea what I'm going to say, and I won't remember at the end. But I know I always say, does this make sense? Do you have another question? Because it's like they're checking to make sure the message isn't like, out of left field. And then when I like come back, whatever that's like, yeah, I have no idea. That happens 100% of the time where people say, well, don't you remember telling me this? I'm like, no. It's very interesting.
Bob, have you ever communicated with a pet?
Yes, my dog talks to me all the time. And I've even communicated, this is going to sound crazy, but I feel like I've communicated with cockroaches once. Because a friend of mine's house seems to have them around, and she was like, okay, we need to make them go away. So I was in her house, I'm like, well, let me see if I can talk to them. And she said I did, because I know I started channeling, because I don't remember what I said. And she said that they told her where they were coming up from or how they were getting into her home. And she went there and saw it and made a change there and blocked it, and they stopped coming in. So yes, I have channeled with dog. My dog talks to me all the time, but the cockroach thing, that was actually just something I thought was hilarious. But I did get stuff on that. But I've heard my dog talk to me, and then also other friends of mine who I have an energy healer who comes over, who also my dog talks to, and she'll say, oh yeah, Carly just said, whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, she told me that yesterday. So it's interesting that, yeah.
That's crazy. It's not, I shouldn't say crazy. It's interesting. I was doing my Oracle cards, and for some reason I wanted to always do 5-card spreads, but the very first time I did it, instead of saying 5, the word 7 came out of my mouth. I went, oh, okay, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. And a couple of times on the second card, I was getting information from your dead cat. Saying,
oh, wow.
And I did this on my card reading course. One of the people also, were reading for each other, and I flipped over and I said, this is really weird. I've got this chubby black and white cat wanting you to take your present cat to the vet. And the lady looked at me very seriously and she said, well, we're doing drywall and it's been coughing, so we think maybe that's what it is. And I said, I don't know. So she ends up taking the cat to the vet. Yes, it was drywall dust, but, you haven't seen your cat for a while, and take a blood sample. The kidneys were shutting down. And if they didn't take the cat to the vet at that time, they would either have to put the cat down or be spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on vet bills or medication. But there was a change of diet, fixed it. So she was all giddy, come back 2 weeks later for the rest of the course. Oh, this is what happened. And I said, oh, that's really cool. And then one of the other people said, so you're an animal communicator? I said, no. And they all looked at me and said, you got a message from an animal. And
yeah.
Oh, crap. I guess I am. But I don't get anything. I do Reiki on my dog because he's got an appliance in his rear right knee, and it's arthritic on him. I would love to be able to communicate with him a lot of times because he'll just stare at me when he wants something. And it's like, well, write it down and tell me what's going on here. Use your opposable thumbs to do something. Type it. But, I try, but I don't get anything, hear anything.
I don't know how to. Yeah, he can't. He hasn't figured it out, is what I heard on that. By the way, I just have to ask you one weird question. So, did you do Reiki on the dog yesterday?
No, but I had. And I know Bob the psychic. It's like.
Well, I didn't really know how to start because it's kind of interesting. So because since I was in real estate, I didn't want to use my last name because I thought it would be weird if your psychic was a realtor or your realtor is a psychic. So that's kind of how I keep them apart. So the people that I work for now, I'm a broker for a new home developer. They know and they don't care, but I don't mix it up. So that way people won't be able to figure out that if they have a real estate thing or some issue comes up, they won't, see that I'm a psychic too. So that way there's no weird questions or anything about it. They just think it's funny. But then I'll go to their office and I'll say something to someone and they'll be like, oh my God, you're right. So yeah, that's great.
You don't come up and say, oh, this is not going to be the home for you.
No, I don't.
This will be the home for you. Or what was that? The poltergeist where they...
Yeah, because I thought it would be weird if I started... Yeah, if I started telling people this was their home and not... I mean, I remember when I was selling residential real estate, I would know whether it was home, but that was before I discovered this gift and all that. But I would know when we walked into the home whether we were going to write an offer before the client knew.
Yeah,
that happened all the time.
Kind of at the beginning of this epiphany for me, my ex and I were looking for a home, and we walked into a house and we walked in the living room and we had to leave. It was the creepiest thing. And then I checked with a psychic. I gave her two psychics. I gave them the address of the house, and They said, "Oh yeah, there's a person buried on the grounds under the room you were in," and it would have been somebody from 100 years ago. But eventually, the house was built on top of where they had died. It's like, okay, either that or it was somebody murdered and buried in the concrete. But who knows? We didn't buy the house anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the name of that guy in the? Oh my God, who's supposed to be buried in the end zone at the football stadium? I can't remember. Anyways, yeah.
The Union.
That's
guy.
what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever his name was. Yeah.
Are my listeners jumping up and down, going, "No,
I know
Jimmy
they're all
Hoffa,
going,
it's Jimmy Hoffa."
Yeah, Jimmy. That's right, Jimmy Hoffa. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So look, all your listeners are psychic too. If they knew that, no, I'm kidding. But anyway,
what listeners plural? Are you kidding? My listener, I refer to him as him, her as. Here's this thing. I'm going to run something by you because you're psychic. I got this. I like to travel around and go to, like, I was in the international. Well, I'm going to your town for a couple of conferences. I go down to Tombstone and I go up to Sedona and I bounce around and off to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and do the ghost tours there and UFO conferences and events. And what I did is I set up a thing on Patreon. Are you familiar with that?
No, I just found it today when I was looking at you, but I saw that, so I just was going to go look into it. But yeah, I've not.
So what it is if you like the podcast, I ask people to go to my website at theoracleswithjamestyson.com and click on the Patreon link. And for a $3 a month donation, you end up getting your name put into, when I get a few more people, I'll be drawing a name once a month for a psychic reading, another name once a month for past life regression, another one once a month for an astrological chart. And then when I get to 2,222 people, which is a crap load of money, and I don't need it because I'm retired, I will draw a name once a month for a trip for two. And let's say you like ghosts, and I'll send you to Gettysburg and airfare accommodation and car rental and hook you up with the ghost tours there. And if you like UFOs, I'll send you to a UFO conference, either like one's coming up in Dallas, Alien Con in Dallas. We got the International UFO Congress in Phoenix. So I'll send a person and whoever they want to bring, airfare, accommodations, car rental down there. And if I max out at my 3,500 people, those trips end up going international. So that's what I'd like to do, and then I could kind of hang out with them and go with those tours. I'm just hoping eventually in the next year or so some people.
I heard no through all of that, but I'm not sure. Is it? I feel like setting up the trip is going to be too hard, or there's something about the trip itself. It's not about the number of people or the money or whatever the membership thing that you're doing. But I feel I don't know that you're going to do that. I feel like you're going to find something else of value for them instead of the trip. But I am not sure what it is, because when you were talking about the trips, I heard no on that.
Yeah, because
so I don't know if people are supposed to pay to go, or I did get. It's interesting when you talk about the international thing. I heard no on doing it for free, but I feel like you might lead an international trip of some sort, like taking people some places. Yeah, but I feel like they're going to pay to go to it. I mean, it might be a reduced rate of some sort, but I feel like they have to have some kind of like skin in the game on that. The other ones, when you were doing I'm going to draw a name, that I got. Oh yeah, that's really good, because that's just like giving back. But the trip thing, I feel like I'm not sure. I got no, so I'm just going to go with I'm not sure that that's the right thing.
Because one of the things too is if I draw somebody's name and I've got X amount of $1,000 in the bank, and the trip, as long as I don't make it a prize, because then it's taxable in the U.S.
Oh, right? Okay.
If I say I drew your name, Bob, and I'm going to Gettysburg, and you want to come, I've got an extra 2 tickets, and that's the way. So
I heard yes on that.
Yeah, so
I heard yes on that.
Yeah, so it's us going as opposed to here's a gift, because if I gift it, it's taxable.
Right.
And that's
yes, I keep hearing no on the gift. okay, I got yes when you go, no on the gift thing. Because I feel like the reason you have to go is that that way they know what they're going to actually do what they say they're going to do, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Like they're really going to, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna send somebody to Gettysburg that I've never met, and they end up tearing up the Airbnb and turning it into a brothel for a weekend without me.
There you go. Yes, no, you're not going to do that.
So there'll be because most of the people who sign up are going to be woo-woo people anyway. They're going to be normal podcasting kind of people, and especially if you go to international trips, you're not going to end up having a convict who was paying the $3 a month to listen to it. So
Right.
yeah, I've got to get him out of jail just for a couple of weeks. Plus the international trips, I'm paying for the airfare, or we are paying for the airfare. So if you want to instead of being there for a week in Glasgow in a haunted castle, change your return date to whatever you want. I'm just covering your airfare.
I get a yes on that. That feels like it, and then they're paying for the accommodations or some portion of the accommodations.
Yeah, after the week that I paid for, they can tour Europe and come back whenever they want.
Right.
What the heck, you're in Europe. It's like, or Australia, you go down there, or somebody from Australia coming to the United States. So, yeah, so anyway, that's the plan. That's what I got going. That's about as big as my commercial gets for what I'm doing. If anybody wants to jump in and donate their latte money for a month.
There you go.
Some people they say, I'll do a reading for them and say, I should pay you, and I said, no, I don't want to be paid. And they said, well, we got to give you something. I said, okay, how about $36? What? In $3 a month increments for a year. There you go.
Right, there you go.
So sign up onto that. So it's kind of fun. When you travel, or do you travel to do your work, or you basically stay in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area?
I basically stay here, but I know that I'm going to be traveling. No, I heard I'm traveling later this year. I know I'm going to be traveling, but it hasn't happened yet. I do feel like, I keep getting later this year. I feel like later this year I'm going to do it, but no, I haven't really done it yet. I did go to one fair in Los Angeles. It wasn't a good fair, and it wasn't successful, and I would not do that again, so I'm hesitant to do that. But I feel like I'm going to be traveling sometime soon, because a lot of it, when you travel, there's the hotel charge and getting there and all that, and I kind of like to, don't like to have all those expenses on top of everything else, and then start to do readings to catch up, so at least you break even.
Oh, very cool. I've got I was a part of a number of paranormal groups that, of course, when I first got pointed out I could do this, the psychic signed me up to a couple of groups, going out on paranormal investigations and things and talking to dead people. I found them very I didn't like it, because hey, look, we found a dead person and they're talking to us. How about we go get a whole bunch of other people to come over and poke at the dead person instead of trying to help them cross? Have you ever been asked to come along on a paranormal investigation?
No, not yet, no. But it is interesting, though. So there's a television show on the Travel Channel called Dead Files. And
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever watched that or not. So
It's the only one I watch.
She's amazing. That show
Amy.
is just amazing, but I can't watch it anymore, and here's why. So it happened, the first time I noticed that whatever spirit she was talking to, I was sometimes feeling, I was with Marie and she said, I started channeling that person and started saying stuff and sounding like Amy without realizing it. And then I realized, well, maybe I shouldn't watch this show because somehow they're coming through the TV on me. And then the last time I watched it, so the show had just started and she was talking about wherever they were going. And I felt something like tapping my knee, like it wanted to talk to me. And I turned to Maria, I'm like, that thing on the TV is trying to talk to me. We need to turn it off. And so I've never watched it since then. But it is interesting that whatever it was, and that's recent. I mean, that was within the last 2 or 3 months. But in the beginning, I mean, I watched it all the time with her. But now we can't watch it because every time we do, it's like whatever the ghost she's talking to suddenly appears and wants to be around me or talk through me. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested in that. Like letting them. But when it started kicking my knee, I was like, that was just weird.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Amy is, I like the show, first of all, because it's got a policeman in it who kind of who started off being
Yeah.
a neutral, and I don't think he's neutral anymore. It's like, oh,
Probably not from all
Probably
the
not.
experience. Yeah, so, yeah.
yeah, and then Amy Allen, who is the psychic, and I she's a friend of mine on social media. We talk all the time, and you know, I can imagine the type of stuff she goes through. I'd love to talk to Amy because a number of things I want to talk to her about, and I'm going to ask you about these things. Is there are dead people who have crossed
Right.
over, which is what you and I bump into all the time. And then there are the dead people who haven't crossed over, and then there are elemental beings, and there are all sorts of other things. Do you ever see any of the others, the elementals? Do you ever get them coming through, other than when they're a spirit guide?
I feel like the answer to that is yes. That's interesting, but it's a recent phenomena, like within the last week or so, because there was a couple days, it didn't happen last night, but the 2 nights before that, I saw like a white flash in like the left-hand side of my vision area twice while I was watching TV, and then when I went to bed that night, I saw some spirit or something floating around the room. Both nights, it looked like the same thing. It didn't come last night, but it came the 2 nights before that. So I feel like the answer is yes, if that was the first time I've ever seen it. And I'm kind of hoping it will come back because, I just got the chills, which means it probably will. So I can talk to it and see, try to communicate with it
Okay,
now that I know that it's real.
Don't, and you probably already know this, but don't say, hey, I'd like you to come back. Because once you've invited them in and it ends up being negative, it's really hard to get rid of.
Oh, I don't feel like, I asked one of my psychic, the one who I talked about, when the beings are here, she said it's not negative. She got that it wasn't. So
yeah, it's the house guest that I had eventually had a fellow peek in her door once, and she said, "Well, come on in. I don't know, why are you here?" And to get rid of that, he used to crawl into bed with her and whisper in her ears all sorts of inappropriate things.
Ooh, yeah, that's not good.
And snore and touch her and things like that. To get rid of him after she invited him into the room was it was quite an event. It was actually a whole episode of one of my podcasts trying to get him to step back. He wouldn't cross over. He was too damaged. And it was pretty hectic trying to deal with that guy. I get the typical empath, between 3 and 4:30 in the morning. You wake up and
yes,
build. I usually build the bubble. Other than having kids who ignore the rules of the bubble coming in. I had one in Oregon who called me daddy in the middle of the night and scared the bejiggers out of me. And then down in Tombstone, Arizona, I had a kid grab my hand, pull it down, and then he took off under the bed and went thump, thump, thump under the bed. I was mad because I had built this little bubble, said, and nobody bother me, this is my time. But kids ignore that. They don't know the rules, damn it. So
right.
They came through.
I do wake up that thing at 4 o'clock in the morning, like you said, and also when it's a full moon, like this last week, there was a full moon. And I did not sleep well either of those 2 nights. And that's a recent thing, too. That didn't start happening, I want to say, within the last year, when I realized I have a night it's hard to sleep because it's a full moon. And that, I feel like since I've become like awoken or whatever they call it, whatever we are now, woo-woo, that causes that. But waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, that happens occasionally, too. That's good to know. I thought I was the only one. It wasn't related to this. So that's funny now that it happened to you. Okay.
It's one of the things that I find and what I found when I got pointed out this empath thing is that within a month, I could look at somebody and go, "Oh, you're one of us. You're an empath." And I could literally walk up to them and say, do you still wake up between 3 and 4:30 in the morning? And did you have a lot of anxiety as a kid? And people are looking at me like, who are you and how do you know all this stuff? Well, the anxiety is because we take on our friends' problems. And we wake up between 3 and 4:30 because the veil thins between us and them. At that time, all day long, they're tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Hey, Bob, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me?"
Right.
Between 3 and 4:30, they're shaking your shoulder saying, "Bob, can you help me?" And you wake up and go, "Oh, gotta pee." That's what happens. Yeah, but we've been waking up, when we were little tiny kids, You'd wake up and see shadows in your room and just pull the sheets over your head and roll over and go, oh, I don't want to see those anymore. And eventually we blocked those out. But my gosh, it's like saying, did you know, and this is legit, Bob, 50% of the population only dream like you and I do twice in their life. 22 to 26% dream like us regularly. That is knowing you're dreaming while you're dreaming, which is the dictionary definition of a lucid dream. Knowing you're dreaming while you're in a dream. Okay. See, nobody's really can nail down and say, well, what percentage of a population are empathic or empaths or higher vibration? But there has been numerous studies on people who know they're dreaming while they're dreaming. And depending on who's done the study, they can go anywhere from 25% to 39% of the population, or 22 to 23 to 24% of the population, depending on which study you follow. But I would say to you that those are empaths. If you know you're dreaming when you're dreaming, that's us. That's only us. So we're not only 5% of the population like they used to say. We are 25% and growing every time somebody gets that tap on the shoulder and say, hey, did you know?
Right.
It's only us. And then no one's, and people are learning to put a word on it, on who they are. And that's all it is. It's just label. It's a label. But it's just in people that are just a bit of a higher vibration.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah, because I do know when I'm dreaming that I am dreaming. That's true. I do kind of know that. And then I'll realize, when something keeps happening, like, okay, I know this is just a dream, so it'll be okay, that kind of thing. But I didn't know that. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And when you were a kid, and this when we were a little more connected and a little less jaded, you could actually dream, get up, go to the bathroom, come back, and continue your dream.
Oh, okay. I bet that is true. Yes. Okay.
But as we continue to build that wall of science and religion and other stuff in our lives, we kind of get away from that connection to being able to control ourselves that well
right.
in our sleep state. But it's a lot of fun when sometimes I just think I need to get to bed early tonight because I want to dream about this. And then head off.
I do like going to bed early. I am a good sleeper, as my ex-wife would say. So yes, yes. It would make her mad though, because there'd be like a pin drop a mile away, and she'd be up, and I'd be like snoring through it, and she would get all frustrated. It was kind of funny.
I'm a better snorer than I am sleeper.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about your ability to turn off your ability. How do you shut down?
To be honest, I'm really not sure, because I know it does turn on during a reading, and when the reading's over, it does turn off. It seems to happen like all by itself, and I feel like maybe that's because I'm in this environment every time I do it. So when I'm here in my blue room, that's when I'm doing it. When I'm out there or somewhere else, I'm not. So I do feel like it does turn off, or maybe I just ignore it. I'm not really sure, because there's nothing physically that I do. I mean, I do a lot of taking deep breaths and grounding, relaxing, whatever, before before I do a reading. But at the end of it, I don't know, it just seems to stop. So I don't really have an answer for that one. Is there something that you physically do, or because I know I disconnect from people once the reading is over, but I'm not really sure how I do it. I just know that happens.
I'm hoping that I find myself unconsciously opening. I can consciously shut and I can consciously open. I imagine just a rose bud over my head and opening the rose up, and then I'm open and making it back into a bud when I'm closed. But the number of times I do readings and actually open that up and then close it afterwards are very, very rare, because most of my readings are done when I'm standing in front of somebody and their relative comes through and says, hey, can you tell them about
right,
not to buy that car or something, or about the decision about school. I'm finding it awkward. I did lose all my guides took a step back, and all my abilities were shut down last November, end of October, and they didn't click back into the end of December because of the house that I had lived in had creeks running underneath it, and construction in the neighborhood had affected the way the creeks went. This is from a couple of psychics who had came to me pretty quickly saying, hey, you got to watch out because there are elemental beings that are really pissed in that neighborhood, and you're wide open, and they wanted to attach themselves to you and feed off this energy. And as a result of that, you've been completely shut down. All your abilities are stunted, and your guides have taken a step back, and you have a large elemental guide right now who's protecting you, and it's almost like a tree. It's all very tall and sharp. And I said, oh, that's kind of weird, because I realized I couldn't read anybody anymore. I couldn't turn that on, and that stayed until I moved to the new place where we didn't have that problem anymore. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting.
That is interesting, yeah. Well, I do feel like, the gift changes, because sometimes, it'll be like, people will ask me a question and I don't really hear anything and I don't really know and it's not working, so I'll usually say, yeah, I'm not getting anything on that. But I do feel like it turns on and off. I'm just not sure exactly how I do it.
You might be just well protected. Your guides may just say, you know what, there's some crap coming along the road here, we're just going to turn him off or down and let it pass, and then crank it back up again when it's needed.
Right. That could be, yeah. Because I do carry, like when I'm out in public, I have grounding stones and on my right pocket, and on my left side I have a pendulum that I keep in my pocket just to keep stuff off me, especially when I'm at like fairs and stuff. But like tonight, I'm going to go over to the department store I work for and just work there for a couple hours. And yeah, I have that because, I do customer service. So you're talking to a lot of people, and some of them I kind of know right away, oh, this is not a good guy or not a good person. And other ones I'm like, okay, no, they're okay. So, but I do definitely get that, just to be careful that way.
It's amazing. It's our way of going through life is we've got to be conscious. We've got to be conscious of what we're doing and how we interact with others on a different level than we did before we knew we had this thing. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, going, oh yeah, that's why I gravitated into this career, or I stayed away from those kind of people, or I were attracted to that kind of person, or these lower vibration narcissistic people were attracted to me to kind of plug in and take my energy. It's in hindsight, you can look back and go, oh, that makes total sense now, why I kind of waddled through life in that way. As a policeman, when I interviewed somebody who robbed a bank because they were drug addicted, they're sitting in my interview room at a really low point, wondering if they're going to get dope sick or not, and not wanting to talk to other investigators. And when I walk in and sit down beside them, they just want to tell me their entire life story, because they're tapping into this vibration while they're in a very low point, and I'm a higher vibration.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. I do feel like I attract people, especially now when we were talking earlier about the price or how much I charge. Like those people are just like higher vibration. It's not a good or a bad thing. It just is. So yeah.
Somebody who wants a reading, or it's their time for a reading, they will find their way to get that much
to the person they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and people say that money is energy, and it should always be flowing. It should always move. It's not the money itself, but it's the ability to make that decision. Now you've got this much money. Okay, I'm going to make that decision. I will get the reading. When you've got $2 and you're at walking on a boardwalk in Brighton in England with all the tents filled with gypsies who are third generation scammers. Not all of them.
Right.
Okay.
Not all of them.
Let me just say that. Not all of them, but most of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be a little bit different. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, and off you went and make you happy. But not that. Here's one for you. I've never got negative things about people, like you're going to fall off this.
I never do either. And people always will say to me, I've heard this more than once, oh, do you only say good things, or will you tell me the truth if you hear something bad? And I say, I'm going to tell you whatever I get. I said, but I will tell you, I don't normally get anything bad or negative, because I never get negative stuff either.
Yeah,
And I feel like people who have been to psychics and they tell them all this negative stuff, I just kind of wonder, well, how real they are, or what's their motivation behind doing that, unless they're trying to scam them, saying, oh, pay me $5,000 and I'll go light candles in Sedona for you, which is ridiculous. And I know there is a psychic here in town who does that, because I've met some of her, survivors, as I like to call them, because they'll come and see me and they'll be like, oh my God, you told me all this stuff. It feels right. The other person did that. And I'm like, well, that's my first warning. When they want money from you, yes, say no. Because I'll never do that. I'll never do that.
And that's, we have, in this part of Canada, we have they were from Africa. They were people who claimed to be psychic, or whatever their term was, and they were preying on their community that moved out here. And they were doing that thing, well, if you give me $800 a month, I will assure the demons never come to your house again.
Oh, wow. That would be nice. Wow. Okay. Pay their rent. Awesome.
Yeah. So basically, so here we go. We're going to get that done and get 5 or 6 of those going. And it's a good
You're good to go.
And they got arrested. So, which is a good thing. I guess. But I don't get negative things from, about people. I get guidance. I get, you have a decision to make. It's coming up, in a month or two. And usually about the decision is, is they already know the answer. You already know what the answer is.
Right.
You just have to take the step, because go with your gut feeling, because your gut feeling is all your guides coming in, and that's your gut feeling. They're going, yeah, do that. And then we fall back into our, free will. Yeah. Damn free will. Talking
no,
that's
true, and I feel like that goes back to the very beginning when I was talking about making people cry. Yeah, because they know they need to do it, and I'm sitting here saying, well, this is what I heard, and sometimes I don't even know what I said that made them feel that way or whatever, but I can tell, because I do it with my eyes closed, and then when I open my eyes, that sense of relief on their face and how their face changes from the beginning of the thing to the very end, when they look more like at peace and more grounded and more guided. And to me, I'm like, okay, I did my job. I did what I was supposed to do. I helped them. Now I'm ready to help somebody else. But it's totally what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I find that they have to. It's like when I saw my psychic for the first time, who knew my mother's name was Lexa. And first of all, knowing, how did she know not only she passed, how did she identify her, and how did she describe her standing over my left shoulder? Okay. Yeah. So, and then describing 3 challenges I was going through at work that no one else knew. And then I looked at her and said, okay, now everything out of your mouth has got to be factual.
Right.
And so I think when we're doing our readings, we're getting that information. If the person is a little bit on the fence about, is this going to be truthful or not, we are given a whole bunch of information that only they would know.
To prove it.
it. And then after that person clicks in that, okay, this is legit, then then the reading happens.
Right, and with me, what I noticed too, so I'll hear in my head like, okay, let the client, the person sitting in front, pick 4 cards after I've given a message, and they'll pick the cards that either they say the same thing or they were ones that I already picked, and they're, the whole deck is spread in front of them. What are the odds of them picking? But I feel like that's to reinforce whatever it is I said, because now you're the one picking them and getting the same messages. It has nothing to do with me. This is all about you. So yes, that I agree with that 100%. That's true too. It happens all the time.
Yeah,
and it happens more now too for me, because like my gift is different now than it was say a year ago. So now it's even more. It's like, because you're right, as like a rose over your head, as it opens and blooms more and more stuff comes in and more people come in, and it's just so fascinating to me, because I know a year from now my gift will be bigger and bolder than it is now, because that's how it always has been. And to me, that's great, because that just means I'll be able to help more people and give them more guidance and have more things to say.
One of the things that I found when I was at the Alien Con in LA, I had never spoken to people from, or I never did readings for people who had Central American, South American, or Mexican, or American Indian heritage, close heritage. So I'm looking at somebody, and their grandmother comes through, and then behind them is this tall shaman-looking fellow with and who's not saying a word, just standing about 10 feet behind them. And I said, what? This is kind of weird, but this is what I see.
Yeah, the woman who helped me, who did the painting in here, her name is Sharon. She always tells me that there's a shaman behind me, a tall Native American guy. He might be 6 feet tall, but he's very broad shoulders. And every time she's here, he's like, oh yeah, he's standing there by the TV, waiting, watching you, making sure all is well. And it's funny, as you started seeing that, I just kind of saw something kind of pop through the wall, like behind the camera over there. Same thing, looked like a shaman thing. So it's definitely, there's stuff going on. So that's so interesting.
Can I ask you about your guy? Does he have, now, I'm for my listener, I'm kind of imagining a headband, just a headband, but not feathers, but it's almost like, or if it's a feather, it's not sticking out of it, it's going... It's holding them in the middle of the feather, like halfway.
It looks to me like
leaves,
like they're beads, not feathers, but beads is what the headband looks like. There is a feather though. Where are they? It's on that side. As I'm looking at him, it's on this side of him, but it's a little tiny feather. It looks like it's white. But that is interesting, though, because I do have over there a turkey feather that has that's been charged and stuff, and I have it on my little, credenza thing over there, like to clear energy. But I feel like that's what my guide looks like. I've only seen him. Well, this is like the first time I've really seen him. Probably you helped me with that as an antenna, because I know I'm an antenna for some people too, because they'll call and I'll talk to them and they'll be like, they're getting all these messages and they'll say, oh yeah, I know I have a gift, but it's never been this loud before. Or even the woman that I'm dating, our antennas go between each other all the time. Like I'm an antenna for her, she's an antenna for me. It's very interesting when we start giving each other messages. It's crazy. But it's interesting.
These shamans that I saw when I was talking to people, I think it was the same guy showed up 3 times on 3 different people. And he looked like he was more almost earlier than the 14 or 15, early than Europeans were in North America and South America. And he was more South American, but big, really big. And
really big, broad-shouldered guy, yeah.
Yeah, he was a big guy. Didn't indicate anything. Not that he would say a word, but he would just stand and look.
He was standing and looking. Yeah, that's what Sharon says. And standing and looking.
What's Sharon's last name? Sharon Day?
No.
Okay, because I know Sharon Day.
No. Sharon
Day is a buddy of mine down in Scottsdale who's woo-woo like us. And has been seeing dead things ever since she was a kid growing up. I don't know. Do you know Sharon Day?
I don't think so, no. This is Sharon. I can't remember Sharon's last name, but it's not Day.
Okay. Sharon grew up in West Virginia, I think, in the house she was raised in was a Civil War battlefield hospital for both sides as the battlement.
Oh, wow.
And she thought everybody had dead soldiers in their house walking around. Her bedroom floor had bloodstains on it from the Civil War, like into the wood. So yeah, she's very interesting, and UFO and Bigfoot.
Maybe she'll come to this thing. You can introduce her to me. That'd be awesome. So we're going to be at those 2 events here in town.
Well, she better, but she's filming a TV series, I think. So
okay.
Some woo-woo TV series out there. But she's a Scottsdalian, very, very interesting lady.
There's a lot of us out here. There's a whole psychic community. I mean, when you go to the fairs that I go to and you see the same faces, everybody in the room, it is interesting. Yeah, because everyone has their own gift and there's no competition. It's just everybody there to have a good time and help people. That's what I love about it.
I like it because I like that area. I wish you had an ocean, but I guess we'll have to wait till the shit
earthquake
happens. Yeah, I think they have the ocean because I miss being around. I recharge near moving water. And old growth forests. So when I was a Mountie in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I was in the prairie provinces here, away from water and oceans. There's occasional creeks and stuff, and I didn't mind getting away and doing a little bit of fly fishing and things in the creek and relaxed. But not a lot of old growth forest where I was, and not near the ocean. So when I went back home to British Columbia and got down on the coast here, things just started happening and recharging. So it was a lot of fun to get back and growing a bit.
Yeah, I like being around water and the ocean, the Caribbean. I've been to a few times. It's just nice being in it, and it is relaxing. Of course, I really haven't been back to it since this whole gift thing started, so it'd be interesting to see how it would be different now than it was before. But I would I've been to Hawaii a few times, and it was always very relaxing just to be around the water and listen to it and watch the fish.
Yeah, it was great. I was at the Big Island, Hawaii, a couple of months ago on the Dragonfly Ranch. And I was fascinated how they rounded up the dragonfly. I'm kidding. But it's a lady there has a very holistic drop-in area. They've got a wonderful labyrinth and everything. They grow their own food, and very, very interesting there. And it was just very magical and very uplifting, recharging. You could stand on the lanai and look down a couple of miles to the ocean and watching it moving, and amongst the trees. It was a really, really energetic place and a lot of fun. I always joke around being, it was the Big Island of Hawaii, and pick up a piece of black lava and saying, this is supposed to be grounding, it comes from the earth. I felt really grounded since I've been here. And then the camera pans back and I'm in the middle of a giant lava field. So it was quite a grounding place, actually. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Bob,
that would be cool.
I'm going to let you go now because you have to start your day. Goodness sakes,
I do. I have reading starting in about half an hour. I've got 4 of them today, a regular day here at the Worldwide Headquarters of Bob the Psychic, as I like to call it. So, yeah.
Worldwide Headquarters of Bob the Psychic in Scottsdale,
There
Arizona.
you go. In North Scottsdale, there you go.
So please go to his website, Bob the Psychic. Bob, thank you very much for giving me the time, and I really look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at the Soul Summit and at the International UFO Congress.
Yes, I look forward to seeing that too.
Yeah, and hopefully,
perfect. Yes, I look forward to seeing you there too.
Yeah. All right. And thanks again. And this has been fun. And
hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go. What are those voices? Look up for the mountains. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after now. Run through the hill like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after. No!
I see dead people.